Politics now. President Obama is about to be back in Washington after his tour of Asia. It was largely overshadowed, though, according to many accounts, by the crisis in Ukraine. Congress is joining him back in the nation's capital after their two-week recess. You know they earned it. But the question is, who's back to work? Well, Howard Fineman is, editorial director for the Huffington Post Media Group and friend of La Cycle. How are you?
Oh.
Hi, Ari.
Always with the downbeat.
Over the top.
You know, every jazz band needs different instruments. Howard, the main thing coming out of the Asia trip, according to the traditional press, is that the president's foreign policy doctrine is still in tatters. Big front page New York Times piece I'm sure you saw. More coverage of the feeling that Secretary of State Kerry didn't get a breakthrough in the Mideast, although to be fair, nobody has gotten one of those in some time. What's your view of this trip and where the president stands?
Well, I think the trip was a trip of good intentions. I think he's wanted to pivot to Asia for a long time. I happen to have been out in that part of the world recently, and you can see with the rise of China and the booming economies in the countries around the South China Sea, including Malaysia and Philippines and so forth, that the president was right to want to pivot to Asia, right to want to assert our role economically and even militarily there. But he's been waylaid by all kinds of things. He's been waylaid not only by Vladimir Putin, but by other problems in Europe, by energy issues, by nagging problems in Afghanistan and Iraq and so forth. So he was right to go there, but it struck me, again, having been in that region recently, as a little late and a little short. I think he accomplished some of what he wanted there, but as you say, things were overshadowed by Putin, who's kind of rampaging through politics and diplomacy today.
Yeah. Now, Howard, turning to domestic issues, we've been having this conversation about immigration reform. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? We thought maybe Boehner's over-the-top mocking of his Republican colleagues with his,
it's too hard.
Maybe this was a sign that possibly he was going to move forward with immigration reform. Now we're getting word that he apologized to them. He was just teasing them.
Oh, boy.
Is there any chance we're going to see immigration reform before the midterm elections?
Well, he could get it done with a snap of his fingers.
Exactly.
He could quit doing a pantomime out in his district and just let the discharge petition go and or forget about it and bring the bill to the floor in the House, where all the Democrats, this is the immigration reform bill, which the House Democrats would almost uniformly support.
Right.
There are 3 Republicans already supporting it. You'd only need a handful of Republicans to pass it. I think it would pass. John Boehner has within his power to do it himself, and I don't know if he has the guts to do it.
I think that's right, Professor. But also Stan Greenberg and Jim Carville are out saying, hey, they're Democratic strategists. They're advising Democrats who are running this year saying, hey, don't say that we're in recovery because it makes them seem like that we're out of touch and that upsets people. But this is the Democratic challenge that folks are saying, hey, if you can't tell us after 6 years in charge in Washington that we're not in recovery, then we should throw you out, which is a fundamental misunderstanding. And the problems really stem from crushing unions, deregulation, and cutting taxes on the rich, rather than the things that the Dems are trying to push.
Well, James Carville is not exactly the White House's favorite strategist or analyst, and Carville and Greenberg have been saying this for years. They told the president and the Democrats not to talk about recovery in 2010. I think they told them not to talk about it in 2012, and they're telling them that again. But, of course, if you have no offense at all, you're only on defense all the way along the way. And there are places to say things, and there are things to be said of positive news. It is true that the overall numbers of what's happened to the real wages of middle-class people, those numbers don't lie, and they say that both men and women have fallen back in recent years. But still, you've got to make a case of some kind, and I think the White House and the Democrats will try to do it where they can, whatever James and Stan have to say.
Yeah, and speaking of numbers, Howard, there's a new poll out today, a Washington Post, ABC poll that I'm sure you've seen. Not great for the president or for Democrats. Has his approval now at 41%, down from 46% through the last 3 months of this year. I mean, you know this better than I do, but it seems almost every president at this point in their presidency, they reach a low point, right? Is this, in your mind, a matter of just fatigue and people being bored of the president that's in office, or do you see this as something more?
Well, it's a combination of the two. I know that's the cop-out, but that's the answer. I mean, part of it is what happens to every president, the sort of ennui in the 6th year. But also, look, the Affordable Care Act may end up doing a lot of good for a lot of people, and there's a lot of documentation to show it. But the way it entered the stage still has a lot of people upset and concerned. It left a sort of, it's hard to erase that earlier memory. That's number one. Number two, the economy, as I said, has improved for some people, but not by no means all people. And foreign policy, which nobody was paying much attention to, is turned into sort of a net downer for the president now. Things are spinning out of control in the Ukraine. We've made all kinds of statements of we're drawing lines in the sand again here, just as we did in Syria. And I think that brings up memories of president's foreign policy efforts that don't really help him right now.
Yeah.
All right, the Huffington Post's Howard Fineman, thank you very much.
Ari, I will try to be more fizzy next time around here in the This is the I'm speaking in front of the Feynman robo camera here in D.C.
You know, the cameras sometimes they don't feel that warm, but you know, Crystal's right. As they say in hip-hop, Howard, just do you. That's all we want.
Okay. I will do so. Take care.
We'll see you again soon.